Investigation is not yet over. In fact, when of Concepcion comes home, there will be a deeper look into this.
That was Overseas Workers Welfare Administrator Hans Kakdak speaking before reporters in Manila. Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. The big story for Friday, February 16. The Labor Department starts investigating officials of the OWA and of the POEA for possible negligence in the death of Joanna Dimophilis in Kuwait. Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano suggests creating a cabinet cluster dedicated to OFW concerns. Dimophilis' death has put quite a number of things in the spotlight over the last couple of weeks. The Labor Department ordered a ban on deployment of new OFWs to Kuwait when they discovered Dimophilis stuffed inside a freezer in the Arab nation. Joanna's family lost contact with her in 2016. They say they asked the OWA for help in locating Joanna, but they were allegedly ignored. The Labor Department's welfare officer in Kuwait, Sara Concepcion, allegedly told the Dimophilises that she is buried in paperwork and hence could not attend to their concern. She had been recalled to the Philippines for questioning. During his campaign, President Duterte himself promised to streamline OFW-related processes into one standalone department. In the lower house alone, there are 6 pending proposals on the matter. Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano is now suggesting a dedicated cabinet cluster for the same purpose. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello thinks that Department of OFWs will go against the goal of repatriating migrant workers. After almost 2 days in transit, the body of Filipina domestic helper Joanna Dimophilis arrived in Naiya this morning. OWA and POEA are still in hot water for their alleged inaction on her case. Dale De Vera has more.
She was gone since 2014. Today, Joanna Daniela Dimophilis came home to her family. But it was a reunion no one wanted. The Filipino domestic helper came home from Kuwait in a casket a week after it was found inside her employer's freezer. She had been missing for more than a year.
Naging kawalan po siya sa amin po dahil yung mga pangarap niya po yun yung sinasabi niya sa mother ko na kaya po siya umalis po dahil gusto niya matulungan yung mga magulang namin.
Joanna's family last heard from her in November 2016. They said they reported her as missing to the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration in February last year, but their follow-ups were allegedly ignored. Sara Concepcion, welfare officer in Kuwait, told the family that she was buried in paperwork and could not find the time to look into Joanna's case.
There was no reply or response to the request for assistance.
Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III had already ordered Concepcion's recall to the Philippines, saying having too much work was no excuse. At the same time, Bello ordered Labor Attaché Alejandro Padain to explain why he also failed to help the Dimophilis family. In his defense, Padain said that the family filed the report before he even took office. He too may be recalled if Bello decides that this explanation is unsatisfactory. For Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano, a dedicated cabinet cluster might be able to prevent a repeat of Joanna's case.
As you see, in the case of Joanna, may complaint na nagsabi na sila, hindi pa na-actionan kaagad. So this is not an isolated case. And in the past, there's been finger pointing. But ang instructions ng Pangulo is that either kasalanan ng gobyerno o walang kasalanan. So hindi pwede sabihin ng DOLE, DFA kasi, o ng DFA, DOLE kasi, o OWA, POEA. No? That's why we're pushing for a cabinet cluster on OFW concerns. And then afterwards, magkaroon ng interagency on OFWs to make it easier for all of our OFWs.
The Philippine government says it is trying to reform the deployment system with a memorandum of understanding with Kuwait. Among other things, Manila wants to do away with the current system of OFW sponsorships, which allow Filipino workers to surrender control of their passports to their employers. Another reform proposal: workers' salaries may be deposited straight to OFW bank accounts so authorities can also monitor if they are paid well. Dale De Vera, Bloomberg TV, Philippines.
Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano admits that relations between Kuwait and the Philippines are strained following the discovery of Joanna Demophilis' remains.
We're going through a very rocky period. We have had very, very good relations with them. In general, they love Filipinos.
Cayetano says the Kuwaiti government was outraged with what happened to the Filipino domestic helper, but they don't seem to be doing enough to give Demophilis justice. There is still no information on the whereabouts of Demophilis' Lebanese and Syrian employers.
Gusto nila pumunta Pangulo. Pero alam nila at alam natin, hindi pupunta yung Pangulo nang walang direction. So I explained to them that before the President can go, we have to have substantial agreements and firm commitments. We gave them some confidence-building measures.
The Philippine Association of Agencies to Kuwait are worried that the strained ties might affect OFW remittances to the Philippines. PHILAC noted a $50.23 million drop in money sent home from Kuwait last year. The association says the decline may continue if the ban on new OFW deployments will not be lifted soon. The 15th batch of overseas Filipino workers repatriated from Kuwait came home this morning. A total of 113 OFWs are expected to arrive on Friday. Each of them will receive 25,000 pesos in financial aid from the government. Some of them shared their grief with their employers' mistreatment and abuse.
Ayaw ko na ng Kuwait.
Bakit?
Nako, hindi na, alam na ng lahat kung ano ang sitwasyon namin doon na OFW bilang katulong sa Kuwait. Hindi na talaga kami babalik. Sobrang mamalupit nila. 24 hours ang trabaho. Kulang sa kain. Pagalitan ka pag...
More officials are defending the president's decision to appoint Iglesia ni Cristo Executive Minister Eduardo Manalo as special envoy for overseas Filipino concerns. Senator Cynthia Villar says this is a rare opportunity for Manalo not just to serve within the INC, but also for Filipinos abroad. DFA Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano admitted that his department recommended Manalo. He said the DFA could use the religious leaders' organizational skills in helping OFWs.
Basically in their private capacity, but covered with official cover because they're special envoys. No? They're able to multiply our efforts in the countries.
On Thursday, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque denied that Manalo's appointment was payback for the INC support for President Duterte in the 2016 elections. When the big story returns, former Senator Ed Angara joins us to give his insights on the administration's push for federalism. Please do not go away.
Ang mga ancestors natin na mga Chinese, they came here to the Philippines 100 years ago, no? So talagang deeply rooted ang mga Chinese culture dito sa Philippines. That is why na-influence po pati mga Pinoy, no? Nag-celebrate sila ng Chinese New Year, kumakain sila ng tikoy, pumunta sila ng Chinatown tuwing Chinese New Year. So I can say Philippines and China are brothers. We should love each other.
Ever since President Duterte took office, our bilateral relationships have entered into a new golden era. An era where our friendship will be deepened, our cooperation will be expanded, our people will be getting together and working together to benefit from the cooperation between our two nations.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You are watching The Big Story. President Rodrigo Duterte promised to give enough leeway to the members of his appointed Charter Change Consultative Committee when he swore in the 19 members of the CONCOM. Duterte said he trusts that the committee will not recommend anything to Congress that will harm the country. Former Senator Edgardo Angara is not entirely opposed to the idea of amending the current 1987 Constitution. However, he thinks that dividing the country into separate states that may later secede may not bode well for the Philippines. Senator Angara is in the studio with us now to share his insights. Senator, welcome to The Big Story.
Salamat.
So, your concerns, federalism.
I'm not opposed to the concept of federalism because it really empowers people in the grassroots. But I'm against pushing it too rapidly, too quickly, without socializing, without teaching, without public education of the people, because we have grown up in a unitary state, thinking of one nation state, the Philippines. And we worked on that for almost over a century until we got the concept of being a Filipino nation. Now, federalism originally as a concept started with existing states, whether it's in Canada, in Switzerland, in Germany, in Australia. They federated to become united. It's less than 150 years, and we cannot even work a unitary system better. We cannot even govern it better because there's no established party system, and that's why this shifting of party labels is like waking up and put on a new shirt. So that weakens the political culture, and I thought there ought to be a transitional arrangement muna. Okay, let's try it on ARM. Let's try it on CAR, on the Cordillera, because ARM at least has actual experience. But and let's solve the practical problem of political dynasties there. Let's say we create 16 states to correspond to the 16 existing regional councils. Of the 16, only 3 are capable of supporting a separate assembly, a separate prime minister, a separate police, separate teaching and health systems.
This would be the main...
NCR?
Yeah. Cebu?
Not even Cebu. No, wait. NCR, Calabarzon, and Central Luzon. You'll reach a point where the taxes of NCR, Central Luzon, Calabarzon will have to be distributed to those underfunded.
I mean, if you could back up a bit, what is your basis for saying that only these 3 regions, particularly in Luzon, Central Luzon, NCR, and Calabarzon?
Based on the tax...
and yet you're saying that the ARMM, or in this case, maybe the Bangsamoro, is an ideal laboratory to test this out. But I would imagine ARMM sits at the other end of that example, on the extreme end of that example, where you have potentially a region that can identify itself along a particular ethnic history.
But you'll be surprised the era that they get, because their geographical areas B is sufficient to support them in the meantime. Cebu is, I think, next to Calabarzon, Cebu is the most potential outside Luzon. So at most, siguro yung 4 na yan.
So what do you think should be the way forward, and what is your prognosis for all the debates now that we're looking forward to?
I think the House is correct in saying that we will prioritize the BBL. Okay, but not just because we want to create a separate Bangsamoro state right now, but we want to see what strength, what failings, what weakness we can correct before we shift to a federal system, because the ultimate goal really is federalism. Now, but what is the overarching philosophy behind this change of government? Poverty.
What should be the message be to Congress as it considers a constituent assembly? And when you have political leaders now framing it as if it's federalism or nothing. In particular, you have congressional leaders saying, if federalism goes nowhere, the only alternative is a revolutionary government.
No, I think that's a bad logic, because when you think of revolutionary government, that means you don't care about the rule of law. You don't really care about law. What I would suggest is that the Congress or this commission itself set a timeline. The ultimate goal is to empower our people so that we lift millions out of poverty. And we believe between all the forms of government, federalism will achieve that. But this is our timeline. We won't rush into it. We will do a laboratory test in the arm and in the Cordillera, in Luzon and in Mindanao. And let's see. After a while, we will find out the weakness, the strength, the failings, and what we ought to do to correct it before we launch a federal system.
Senator Angara, thank you for joining us in the Big Story.
Thanks.
And that wraps up today's Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. Catch us again on Monday, 8:45 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 or 250, or here at our Facebook page. Good evening.